Is Dr. Nathan Adam. So thanks for introducing yourselves and letting me know a little bit about you. I'll be going through a little bit of my story and why I'm teaching this class and how one even builds the career. We're teaching a class in audio and video and Photoshop and content creation. Like, how do you get a background that makes that make sense? So we'll be walking through that, but if you want to learn more about me, you can at my website at nathaneadam.com. I've spent the last 23 years as a professor of audio engineering, production, and video production, now media production. So I have worked in everything from studios to created products to written books to post-produced TV shows to produced entirely new online series and content for clothing lines, etc. So we'll be walking through kind of my journey and what that looks like. But as I do that, it's funny because right around COVID, it was like I had been doing this for 23 years. I actually moved to Nashville 20 years ago exactly to teach at MTSU for the first through 2010, and then I came here to Belmont in 2010. So in a lot of ways, I see you guys through this 20-year lens, because when I started teaching at 23, 24 years old, I wasn't that much older than most of the students, and as I continue to build my career and all of the things outside of teaching, entrepreneurial ventures, productions, all of those things while I taught, because this is my passion, which I think you'll pick up on that pretty quick. But as I did that, I got to watch and see people's journeys. And so many of my students over the years went on to become friends, went on to become colleagues, went on to become collaborators and projects. And I'll share some of those stories as we go back through my journey, but how learning the different skills that we're gonna learn together in this class, or that you're gonna learn together, how those opened up new doors, new opportunities, new revenue streams for me. And I want you to be thinking about, well, how might this skill then impact my life in 5 years, 10 years, 15, or even something as unimaginably far off as 20 years. So thinking about what you want that to look like is gonna be critical. And the other question I want mulling around in your brain is, what relationships are you building right now? The number one reason by far to come to a place like Belmont and to spend what you're spending on tuition is for the people that are sitting around you right now. The opportunities that will come from everybody that you do a project with, help one night in the lab, hang out with at the caf, go to a concert with, shoot an event with. Every one of those people that you've done something with now becomes a new connection that maintains over sometimes decades, that will then think of you as long as you maintain that connection when they've got an opportunity for whom they say, oh my God, Bella's perfect for this, or Jack is perfect for this, or Cole would be great for this job. And you know what, let me give him a call, and I'll share some of the ways that that's happened in my life. So what relationships and what skills are you building now? So we'll skip back and we'll talk about the class, and then we'll loop back around to my journey. But yes, once upon a time, I have made the same strange hair and clothing choices that some of you, no one in this class certainly, but some of you or your friends might be making right now. So let's hop over to the course real quick and talk a little bit about what you can expect. So open up here the Canvas course, throw me a thumbs up when you've got it, since I can't necessarily see everybody's screens. And just for a quick visual overview, one thing that I learned 15 years ago teaching, I was the first remote teacher for a couple of years. Moved from Murfreesboro back to Branson, Missouri, and I was still a full-time faculty there, but I was developing online curriculum and the earliest versions of long-form mixing and production and Pro Tools tutorials. So one thing I learned was keeping the course website simple. Like, don't have things appear and disappear. And what people also liked was, can we just see what the whole semester is going to look like? I'd like to know and be able to plan. Everybody's got a different feel for that. So let's just see what's in here real quick. First, at the top, you'll have this course content. You can toggle things open and closed. So we'll go through all those links and what's relevant in them here in just a second. If you toggle it closed, you'll see that when we do homeworks, the earliest of which is still a week and a half or two out, so don't worry about it. You don't have one due in here. But of course, you will see anything coming up on your Canvas if there's something due over on the right-hand side. But that'll be where you'll upload those. We'll talk about them more as we get close. Quizzes will happen in this class before virtually every class. They're short, they shouldn't take a long time, but they're over content that you'll be watching outside of class that prepares you for the class. Introduces you to the topics, introduces you to the software or the tools that we're going to use, and then you'll take a quiz to reinforce that knowledge, come into class, and we'll apply those skills and techniques to a project that we're working on. Pretty cool on where to find the quizzes? Sweet. All right, and below that, you'll see things that will become available as we get later in the semester, the final exam, practical exam, and of course, places where you'll upload your projects. Questions so far? Awesome. All right. Then in that case, let's scroll up to course content, and let's just look at these real quick. The first one we're going to spend most of our time on today, course schedule and links. It's right at the top because you want to open it every day of class. When you come in, just open it up because that's where I'll keep all of the content that we need for the class. So you just have one place to go. Project grade breakdowns. When you finish a project, we will make sure that people have know exactly how they did on each section of the project. I'll post a breakdown that shows granular details of what you did excellently, what you did average, and what you did below, as well as feedback from all of your peers who will also be evaluating your projects. Every project we will play here in class, we'll talk through, and everybody will fill out a peer evaluation so we can all learn and get better from looking at and watching one another's work. The next one, schedule a meeting with Nathan Adam. Everybody go ahead and click on it just so you've done this process before. When you click on schedule a meeting with Nathan Adam and open that up in another window, it'll take you straight to an appointment link where you can book time in my office, Zoom, or phone. Questions about that? Go ahead and click on it just so you can see what it looks like. Let's say you wanted some help with something on your Mac, or you're struggling with a piece of the project and you want to come over and see me. I'm right next door in the new Jack Massey building, 347, and it'll be on the syllabus, but you just click that thing. If you've just got a quick software question though, Zoom is totally fine. We can easily share screens and I can almost always diagnose your problem right off the bat. So if you're like, man, it'd be nice to just get on and get some quick help rather than have to like walk all the way over here, Zoom is an easy way to do it. Or if you just want to chat about something, phone call is easy too. Questions about that? All straightforward so far? Awesome. So I'll talk through a little bit about who I am and why I'm teaching this class. We'll go through my story here in a little bit. There is a handbook. You can click to open this up for the labs. Nice. That just shows the basic rules. If you want to know when the labs are open, it's on the door. There's a QR code you can scan and it'll show you. You can use this lab or the lab in 405 in this building. These computers are great. They'll be plenty powerful for any project we do this semester, but there is another one with 16 new Mac Studios upstairs. So if you get really deep into this and you're like, I'd like to push the envelope, go and use one of those. But otherwise, everything you need for this class you can do in here. You can use this lab anytime that there's not a class in it. And some teachers, if you ask them, will let you use especially as we get later in the semester or you've got busy projects, they'll let you use a computer even when their class is going, as long as you're not distracted. Cool? All right. We'll get to the rest of these later. If you don't know how to use Canvas, you can click on that link to watch it. But for now, straightforward, let's open up this course schedule and links. Awesome. All right, so the course schedule is one of the number one things that I've heard people reference in terms of what they love about this class. And we'll go through that here in a minute. But it's because you can see the entire class right now. You can have a clear idea of what you're going to be learning and what you need to do before every class. It's very straightforward. So first, if you just look at any row, you'll see that's the first day of class. We're Monday, Wednesday. These columns at the top are highlighted so that you know what is in their column. So the first day of class for us is the 10th. I also have some Tuesday, Thursday classes. That's why you'll see those, but you can just ignore the Tuesday, Thursday. If you read left to right, you're going to see what you need to do before you come to class. So this first column shows you if you have any assigned viewing or what you should be watching or reading to introduce you to the concepts. The next column will show you what is due. So what was due before class today? Trick question. Nothing, of course, right. It's right there and it's empty. You saw that, yes? You can see empty cell. Then when we get to class, we hit these next few things. But so they're always in the same place. There's a cell for the project instructions, any project files we'll use, tutorials that I've made for the project, and then details of what we're going to be covering in class. If you just read left to right, you can't go wrong. So, and then the last column simply shows if there's anything I reference in class that would be helpful for you to have, like you need to buy a flash drive or something, then I just go ahead and I put that over here in the extra resources. But if you read left to right, you can very easily figure out what you need to have done before class and what's due that day. So go with me here to next Wednesday, because we have no class on Monday due to Martin Luther King Day. And what is the assigned viewing/homework? How to use your Mac like a pro. Hover your mouse over that and you'll see a link box pop up, and you'll see a couple different YouTube links there. So for next class, there's a few videos I've pre-recorded, I've posted in there. You're going to watch through them, you're going to take your notes, and then what comes after you've watched that? There's a quiz and a homework. Yeah, there's a homework, which is a discussion post introducing yourself to the class and answering a few questions. Everybody clear on that? How about go to the next day? Let's go down to the 22nd. What will you be watching before class that day to introduce you to the concepts? Oh. What will you be watching? A LinkedIn series or a few videos from it. We'll talk about that next class. Premiere Pro for the non-video pro. You'll click on that link. We'll have you logged into LinkedIn next time, and that's going to give you, and you'll watch whatever sections are assigned. I usually have about 30 or so minutes worth of videos for you to watch to introduce you to the software or the technique that we're learning. You will take a quiz on it, which you've already seen where that's at. And then if there's any homework, you'll see that there as well. Ask me at least one question so far. Yes, ma'am. Marissa.
So I'm looking at like your extra resources.
Uh-huh.
So do we, well, I guess it says bring your flash or hard drive.
Uh-huh.
So like the flash drive and the SSD drive, are they the same drive or like should we?
Great
download
question.
them?
We will get to that here in just a second. So yeah, no, excellent question. But yes, so you see that those things are on there, and if there is ever a question like, what is that for? If we don't cover that in class, that'd be worth double checking. But we will cover that here in just a second, just so you know. Great question. Anybody else? What are you going to be watching before class on the 31st? And what will that quiz be over? A couple of LinkedIn video sections titled what? Yeah, Premiere Pro for non-video pros is the video. Introduction, section 8, introduction to audio and introduction to graphics. The quiz will be over that content. Questions about it? Does it all make sense? And then you'll come into class where we'll be working on a project. Every class. Cool? All right, now if you scroll through this, just so you kind of understand, let's scroll up and down. I've tried to go ahead and color things by the project. So you'll notice here for the first couple of weeks, we're going to be working on learning video editing in a professional manner with Adobe Premiere. So we'll be working on that, and you can see it in all these pink areas. And every day, if you open up the instructions, or if you need the files, I've put them beside every day so you can download those, or you'll have probably just downloaded them the first time. I've produced tutorials for these, so if you miss a day or you're going to be, or you need to just go back and reference something, there's a tutorial you can walk through, pause, rewind at your own pace. Cool? But in class, we'll be developing all of those skills as well. And then in the class details, you'll see some things. A lot of times, rather than going back and scrolling through a tutorial, it's like, wait, what was that shortcut that he said that does this? And if there's something that I think it'll be helpful for you to just quickly look up, I try to put those in the class details so that you can also see what we're going to be doing each day. What questions do you have about how the class will flow on this document? Ask at least one question, and I'll move on.
So there's 4 projects in total?
Yes, 4 projects.
I think is the last one the final?
The final project. Okay. Yep, great. So over the course of this class, we're going to go through and we're going to spend, it's divided up somewhat evenly amongst 4 projects. The first one will be learning video editing in Premiere as we produce a video together. Then we'll move into some time on still photography and Photoshop so that we can learn how to manipulate photos to maximize them and learn to be comfortable in Photoshop so that we can learn any new Photoshop skill that we want. Then we'll move to a section on recording and editing your own audio project so that you can understand the basics of these tools, how to get good sounding audio, how to add sound effects to a story that you've recorded so that you can get something that creates an immersive professional experience for the listener. And then finally, the last project, you're going to go through and integrate all of those things. We'll add shooting video, shooting interviews, shooting B-roll, and combining all of it together where you'll make one final project that's entirely yours that incorporates everything that you've learned this semester. Questions about the 4 projects? We'll go into them obviously more in future classes. Yes?
Is this something that we're going to have time to do in class, or do you see it?
The federal mandate or the federal requirement is that there should be an expectation of 2 hours outside of class work for every hour inside. Will you spend 6 hours every week outside of class for the 3 you spend inside? Probably not, but you will spend a portion of that for sure. And some weeks, if you're, especially towards the end, as you're shooting your own video, then you might spend more. Yeah, but you shouldn't ever be spending more than that 6 hours a week outside of class doing it. I'd say most weeks is 2 to 3, unless you've just never used. If you really have some catching up to do on how to use a computer basically, then the first few weeks will probably feel like you're spending a bit more time in the lab, but that's okay. You will learn it. I have had people come in. I'll never forget the guy that I said, what was the biggest thing you guys learned this semester? And he raised his hand. He was from Kentucky. He said, I had never used a computer before now. So I heard they just got electricity in this town too. So anyway, but yes, questions. There was one over here.
For the first project, are we shooting our own videos? Or?
No. The first one we're just going to be, for the first 3 projects, you're going to be working with content that I've created. You'll be doing some things like recording your own voiceover or maybe writing your own script for project 3. But for the most part, it'll be content that we've created for you. We've just found over the years, even last semester, we're currently changing project 3 audio because some people are like, I just always want to dive in and use my creativity. So we always try to make sure there's a creative element, but it gets really confusing for a lot of people if you've never done it before and you're recording your own and you're not able to just follow along with what I'm doing. So when you get to the final one, you should be in a good place where you'll understand everything, and that'll be entirely yours. Cool. Everything else, you'll still be making your own edits, your own mixes, etc., but they will be yours. It won't be exact replicas of what I'm doing. Cool. Good questions. Awesome. All right, so that's a quick overview of the class and how this structure works. Questions about that? Yes, Marissa.
Okay,
I love it. It's good questions.
so the assignments, like, are they due like 11:59 the day before, or is it like?
Great question. They're always due at the beginning of class.
Okay.
Everything is always due at the beginning of class. The quiz that's due next class, when is it due? Yeah, it expires and is no longer available after that point. Now with projects, we'll get to this in the syllabi. With projects, there is I do accept late work on projects with a penalty every day, and it's pretty steep because this really is essentially your first job interview. I have a long relationship with so many of my students that there's no place I go where they don't say, hey, can you send me one of your star students? And so I'm always looking for who the star students are. And the star students are the ones who show up and they're excited to work. They're actively learning. They believe that they can learn. They turn in their projects on time. They meet the expectations or the guidelines. I can't tell you the number of students who I've had who I have not been able to refer to jobs, even though I knew they were crazy talented, because they would turn in really great work, but they turn it in late. You turn it in late. How am I going to send you to somebody that's like, send me one of your star students? Oh, trust me, they're really talented, but they won't turn it in on time. Like, that just doesn't fly in the professional world at all, because there's money riding on every deadline. So yeah, that's the gist of that. Great question. All right, so if we've got this, we understand. Let's go ahead and take a quick peek through this syllabi. So we've got syllabi right here. If you click on one of these, if there's a bunch of links, then you can go down to them. So the syllabi right here is in Dropbox. I will just walk through so you're kind of aware of the grading scheme and how things work in here. This is Survey of Digital Production. Like I say, my name is Dr. Nathan Adam. This is my cell phone number and my email. Text, if you have an emergency, text is the fastest way to reach me. It's on Do Not Disturb 23 and a half hours a day. Only my wife and kids and closest friends, it doesn't even ring for, but I get texts, and I love, it's a very simple way for me to respond. You also have that link already built into Canvas where you can easily just grab a time on my calendar. You don't have to ask. I want you to just click it. My office, that's the wrong office. I moved over next door. I'll change this. I'll update this on the website. The course description, it's a course for creative media production and communication across multiple platforms. You'll develop technology-focused production and communication skills with audio, video, and still imaging. You can read the rest of this, but I've already explained to you what we're going to be doing in the class. You're going to learn information about it, operate audio and video software, understand fundamental characteristics of what makes something look professional or sound professional or not, and you're going to demonstrate those skills with both projects and a practical hands-on exam. Over the course, you'll be reading and watching tutorials, taking quizzes over them, and then practice applying these here in the lab on your own projects, and you'll deliver them as professionals with professional guidelines, recommendations, naming schemes, etc. It's split up like this. Quizzes are 12.5%, homework's 12.5%, class participation is 10%. Class participation means you're here, means you're not on your phone distracted, and you're engaged with the content of the class. Again, we will treat this like your first job interview, where you just happen to have a boss that is like really interested in you learning how to do this stuff. That's not something you usually get in an internship. Projects are worth 45%, exams about 20%. So let's talk about this. Every semester I have, this class is so much fun for me, and people come out and the reviews are really good. But there's always one or two that let their fears kind of govern their lives. And those people sometimes start showing up less and less or turning in projects late. And it gets to a point where it's like, I don't want to, number one, this is all about the grade that you earn. I don't change things, we don't manipulate, and there's no extra credit. There's not extra credit when you go to work at any of the production, publishing, PR, or marketing firms that many of you will work at. So if you've got an excused absence, awesome, no worries. Provost excuse or sick note from the doctor, etc. Attendance and engagement start today. In the case of an excused absence, obviously you need to make up that work. If it's excused, it does need to be, typically you'll want to turn it in early. Attendance is required to earn those participation points. So you can't earn the participation points even though they're only 10% of the grade. They accumulate over time, so you don't want to miss too many. So late arrivals, if you show up late, it's just like showing up late to that internship. It won't happen very many times before you don't get asked back. So it's just a tiny little percent of the grade, but it's worth keeping in mind. Late work, I've had enough people. You guys are juggling a lot of things, I understand. So like there's no criticism from me, but you'll just know right off the bat, if a project comes in late, it's 15% per day. I've learned this lesson the hard way from professional projects where I was younger, where I didn't take deadlines that seriously. And as a result, you turn something in a day late, they're gonna think about whether they ask you to do the next thing. You turn something in 2 days late, depending on how much was writing on it, you never get a call back from that client again. You turn something in later than that, they start telling other people not to work with you. This industry is really small and your reputation means a lot. So developing that professional ability now is important. So failure for non-attendance. There's always 1 or 2 people a semester. Everybody else is like 1, 2 absences, 3 at the most, normal. But there's always 1 or 2 people. If you are struggling in this class, I will try to get you to schedule a meeting with me. Every single person that does. It usually takes about 10 minutes of me watching them work in Photoshop or Premiere to say, oh, I see, actually, you're clicking right here, click 1 inch higher. Do you see why it would be? And they go, oh, and they realize like, oh, that 2 hours I spent in the lab last night was because I was clicking 1 inch in the wrong direction, or I didn't realize that that's what that meant. But just those few minutes get so many people over the hump. So do not struggle for long in this class. You book a time with me and we will fix it, and then that knowledge will compound because that thing you learned will apply to the next software and the next software and your final project. Cool? So, but if you hit 6 absences, it's just an automatic failure due to non-attendance. I know, it sucks. But try hitting 6 absences at a job and see how long you have the job. Cool. So if you have any questions about that, of course, hit me up. Student responsibilities. If this is your first job interview, you have to be engaged. You cannot be disengaged with the content. So that means phones off, just like in a professional environment. You go into your first internship in any environment and a supervisor sees you just like chilling on your phone, doing nothing relevant to the company. The first time they might politely ask you to put your phone away, and then they come and complain to people like me. These kids won't get off their phones. But the second time, they'll ask you to leave the room or the pitch meeting or whatever you're doing, and the third time, you just won't be invited again. So it's an addiction for a lot of us, myself included. So be aware. If you've got an important phone call, just step out, just like a professional would. Step out for a second, come back in, and jump back in. Cool. So you can use, so obviously, we will have days where we are using our phones. I'll ask you to get them out, but otherwise, keep it in your pocket or it's participation points. Awesome. So, and I think that's it. Now, to jump back to Marissa's question, you will need some kind of hard drive or flash drive for carrying your projects around. So you can use cloud services, but everybody that relies on the cloud for moving this many files around gets frustrated really quick because it's slow, or they lose work because they can't keep track of which version is the current one. They're uploading and downloading 50 files, and they'll accidentally overwrite the one with all their work. I see it happen every semester. If you have a flash drive or a solid state drive that you can keep all your work on, you walk in here, you plug it in, you open the file and get your work done, you save, you quit, and you walk out with your drive. No mess, no fuss. So, how do I recommend them? If you look on the schedule, that's where I had these. Depending on how much production you're planning on doing in the future, if you're planning on doing more videos, etc., I strongly recommend investing in a solid state hard drive. Something like this SanDisk Extreme with 4.5 stars is $100 for 1 terabyte. It's stupid fast. It'll last you the rest of your college career. It'll fit everything in this class and everything in the rest of your classes, unless you're a film major doing like films. Yes?
Two things. One, I don't know if you heard, but the SanDisk Extremes are actually up for a lawsuit because a lot of them just failed randomly.
Depends on the generation. It was 3 and 4 terabyte ones.
Okay.
Yes, I know. So that said, no, and thank you for pointing that out, because that does happen. Like a few years ago, it was Western Digital. That said, there are less expensive options.
I was going to say the Samsung one, the T7.
Yeah, I love my T7s, but they're more expensive.
They're usually on sale. You said that.
Nice. Samsung.
The SanDisk one.
Nice.
That's nice, so
I love it. I love it. Thank you for the heads up, T7. This is what I use as well, and they are beasts, but they are more expensive. That said, you also can get away with using just a USB 3 or USB-C flash drive, and that's what I put over there, Marissa. And that is, if you look for one that is USB-C like this, 256 gigs, it's very fast, it's $20. You can pick up USB-C or USB 3 flash drives or hard drives at Best Buy, Amazon, Walmart, etc. So you don't have to order online, you can just go and pick one up. You can get away next week or next Wednesday without having one, but you really should go ahead and pick one up, because you'll end up duplicating work if you don't have a way to just take your work with you. Questions about that? So you have options, whole range, yes.
Where are the USB-C ports?
Great question. There's on these computers, there are 2 open USB-A ports on the back and 2 USB-C ports.
Oh, okay. Thank
Yep. Great question. All right. Let's see. All right. So how are we doing so far? Got all this? All right. So real quick, let's go around. I want you to tell me one thing you learned about somebody at the beginning of class. One thing that you learned about somebody at the beginning of class. Why are they here, or what's interesting or unique about them? I want to see how well you were engaged with your...
I learned that Marissa's
From DC. Excellent. Right on. Okay. What else? Yes. Kate.
I learned my goals from a bunch of different places.
Bunch of different places. Excellent. Very cool. Anybody else? Yeah.
Keegan works at the Tennessee Performing Arts Center as
Yeah.
an usher for the shows that go on.
Nice. Feedback. Good stuff. All right. Anything else? It's good. This is your chance to let them know that you were listening. All right. Good stuff. Let me walk you through a little bit of my story and why this class is designed this way, and why I hammer so hard on adding skills and building relationships, because it has created the life that I dreamed of 20 years ago for me and for my wife and for my kids, and I want the same thing for you. Even though everyone in this class will have a different path over the next 20 years, I have now been teaching long enough that when I first started teaching, my students being not much younger than me, I've got to stay connected to many of them over now decades, and watch some of them now hitting mid-career and see which ones succeeded and which ones transitioned to something different. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things, but it all depends on what you want your life to look like. So let me take 10 minutes and just give you a little glimpse into mine. So when I was in college, when I was doing exactly what you're doing, I was a singer-songwriter, guitar player, had used a computer once or twice, maybe in high school, or maybe for typing, but like I had this narrative in my head that computers hated me. I didn't know how to use them, and every time I touched one, something went wrong. Anyone else have a similar sort of experience with computers? Anybody? No? Okay, it was just me then. I was like, no, I can't do this. But I wanted to just be like, wanted to play my instrument, make music, create things that I thought that would help people or that created value for people. And then one day in class, in a computer class, where I was like, God, I don't understand any of this. And he makes this comment about how over the next 20 years, computers were in the process of absorbing everything in audio production, everything in video production. And this was on Premiere 1.0 beta and early versions of audio editing software. So as I started to dive into this and look into it, I thought, oh my God, if I learn this machine, I can do anything that I can dream up. If I learn how to use the tools on this, if I want to record a song, I can record a song. If I want to get better at mixing, I can. If I want to make videos, I started making videos in college in 1997 when it still required a $10,000 computer with stacks of 1 gig hard drives to be able to do this. So it was all very new at the time, but you guys are going through that right now. Artificial intelligence, virtual and augmented reality, blockchains are going to be the technologies that completely change the world over the next 20 years, and your ability to use these tools to communicate stories about those things is what's going to define your ability to make the life that you want. So, but one day in class I realized I can probably learn this thing. I'm a smart guy. I can work hard at this, but I was afraid. And my fear was around this box. And so one day when I realized, like, if I can do this, I just have to get over this fear. So I went in the lab and I thought, my tuition pays for somebody else to take care of this thing. So I'm gonna just open it up with no fear, and I'm gonna click on everything I see until I either understand it or it crashes. And an hour and a half later, that thing crashed. And I walked out the door and left it for them to deal with. Now the good news is, after that I was like, oh, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's just repetition. It's just muscle memory. When I learn how these things work, I can just keep adding skills. Now for you guys, you could do that on these computers, and as soon as you reboot them, it's all back to normal. You can't mess them up. You can't mess your own stuff up unless you're skipping the steps that I'm giving you. So that led to, after I worked through college and did my master's degree in business, I went to work for a company called Sweetwater. Any musicians in the room? No musicians? One? Okay. So Sweetwater sells recording studios and everything that goes in them. Great company up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I met my wife there, and so all my in-laws are still there. But while I was there, I got moved in with this guy, Gabe Smith. Great guy, great landlord, became a good friend. This guy, Greg Bates, became a friend because he would teach the classes, helping people prepare for selling these recording studios, make sure we understood our stuff. And then I had a client one day on the phone who was buying his own home studio or putting one together, and his name was Joseph. And so these were just 3 relationships that I made then that I poured time into. Gabe and I spent a lot of time getting to know one another. Greg and I spent a lot of time from me learning from him, and Joseph was a client that I was teaching. One day, a few years later, or one day on the phone, Joseph says, man, you seem like you really love talking about this stuff. Have you ever thought about teaching? I said, no, but what do you do? And why are you home in the middle of the day? He said, oh, it's spring break. And I was like, when the hell does an adult get spring break? He said, well, I'm a professor at a university outside of Nashville. I teach audio engineering. So long story short, that started a vision for me. If I could teach this for a living, that would facilitate the ability to build anything else I wanted outside of it and surround me with amazing, talented young people who are constantly bringing in fresh ideas and excitement. So, long story short, 2 years later, I was hired at MTSU 20 years ago to last semester. Went there, taught for 7 years, all the way through the 2010s. But while I was there, had a lot of different opportunities, continued to refine the industry as we were moving from old console-based recordings to digital recordings, and made a ton of relationships. Most of my closest friends and relationships today are students that I met along the way, but one of whom in particular I remember, Nate Hertweck. Nate came over to our studio hang one night and got to know him, and we just became friends. So as he moved out to LA post-graduation, we stayed in touch. We'd grab a beer when I was out there doing other projects, and that relationship just continued to grow. But it all started with a conversation with Joseph saying, man, you seem to be putting your energy into this, and I see a path for you. We're still close friends to this day. While I was there, though, I started doing instructional videos, just creating bad, not good-looking instructional videos. In fact, if you Google the SSL 4000G console, my 20-year-old tutorials are still the first thing, and you can see just how bad they are.
Devices.
And you can see how amazing.
Channel input section.
Wow.
To make things as clear as mud,
You can
let's
see
skip
me
over
using
the large,
a red
massive
green
buttons at
screen,
the top of the I/O
teleprompter
module,
reflected off
and
the
move on to the
glasses.
next
But this was the
section,
early days.
which
This
I
is
like to
pre-YouTube.
affectionately
I don't
call
even know
the
whose
channel
channel this
input
is on.
section.
They stole it from,
Sometimes I call it
someplace
sweetheart,
else at some
but
point.
that's a whole nother story.
And the jokes, oh my God, I was too early for TikTok. But along the way, one time, Gabe moves down to Nashville, and he comes to me and says, hey, he says, I know you're doing some video stuff, but I'd like to produce a product. He'd had a lot of success with another person here in town selling products, teaching singing. He said, Nathan, I want to produce the biggest, most expensive guitar instruction series ever. I was like, that's a terrible idea. Isn't there already plenty of guitar instruction out there? I don't know, what do you guys think? Is there already enough? There was enough back then. And he said, well, you don't understand, A, online advertising. It is changing how many people you can help and how many people you can reach. He says, you don't understand affiliate networks, getting people to talk about your product if they love it. And you don't understand how those two things can take the ability to sell something and absolutely change the world with it. So he said, okay, here's my budget. And I said, oh, I'm good enough, by the way. Absolutely. No, I know you've only seen my crappy little instructional videos, but I'm definitely good enough. But can I have 2 weeks? I'll do a demo. And for those 2 weeks, at that time, I had done a lot of video editing, but no shooting. So I knew very little about lighting or getting professional looks. And I did nothing else for the next 2 weeks. There were no videos or tutorials online at the time, so I just read everything possible, borrowed everything I could, rented some other things, and shot a video to demo that I could do the kind of professional work we wanted. He saw it, he liked it, he said, okay, I'll hire you. Here's my budget. Would you rather take all of that up front, or would you rather get a less up front and a royalty on the back end? Lesson number 2, I answered wrong. I said, I like the dollar figure we've settled on up front. And then honestly, in my head, I thought, I don't think it's gonna do well. I don't know how much it could sell. Long story short, $30 million worth of something we produced in my living room. Didn't see any royalties, got paid, good lesson. But that then led to me going, okay, hang on. Again, another relationship, but I added another skill in a concentrated period of time, 2 weeks of just absorbing nothing but video production. And I got at least a good enough demo that taught me how to do something that created a ton of value. And that taught me, like, damn, if I keep adding these other skills, the minimum of what I'll accept in life goes up. Just like I learned from my friend Gabe. So I started producing other courses. Now, before Twitch, before YouTube, it was not possible to learn the techniques that we're going to learn this semester without coming to a school and sitting down and watching somebody do it. You couldn't learn it online. So I had developed a technique for producing instructional videos, capturing somebody's screen before we had software to do that, and started producing and selling my own courses online. That turned into a big business. We were doing that, but I thought, how could I get this out to even more people? What relationships have I had from my past that have a conduit to put this sort of value in front of people? And if it helps them, then they can buy it, and that value gets exchanged. So I went back to my friend Greg at Sweetwater, who had taught me so much, I'd spent so much time learning from, and I said, hey, you're a great teacher, but I figured out how to capture this stuff in a DVD, and so that you guys can sell it. And because Twitch didn't exist, YouTube didn't exist, he said, I don't really know if people will buy this. I was like, I guarantee you, my students love it. Go for it. Took about a year, but that relationship led to them taking on and selling all of my products for the next 15 years. That created other opportunities. 2007, I found the opportunity to buy a large event facility and recording studio complex down in Murfreesboro that we still have. My most recent project was taking the main event space and projection mapping it to take it from a room that's just pretty and fine for events to some place that you can change the entire background at the click of a button. This was something that I had a vision for, but I didn't know how to do. So guess what I did? I reached out to my relationships. I had former students that were doing this on major tours. I said, how would I projection map the space? What can you teach me, or what resources could you send me to? And I spent about 3 weeks absorbing everything I could on it to figure out how to array projectors and lights and learn the software to be able to do that. And it's been the calling card of that facility ever since. I'm not involved with it other than checking in with the manager once a month, but it's the fact that the clients can make the room anything they want is one of the main reasons they do it. But in 2009, I got a call from Nate. 5 years after he graduated, we stayed connected, but he said, man, I went on from working at the record plant, producing records all day, to working for the Grammys. And we've got this project. We do these Grammy camps, 10 days of bringing 80 of the best musicians from around the country, and we put them in tracks, and they learn audio or video or songwriting or vocal performance or production or business. And we just turned the campus of USC into a hit factory all week. And he said, I need somebody that can teach audio engineering for this, and we can come out and do this. And I've now done 100 Grammy camps ever since in every major city in the country, and continue to do those throughout the year, and we still have our big one in LA every year. But do you see how the skill plus the relationships, without the skill is great, but you can be the most skilled person in your dorm room, and if you're not adding value to the people around you, the opportunities, the seeds are not planted to bring that value back, to open up a new door for you. Every single one of the best things in my life would not have happened if I had my skill, but I hadn't invested it in the people around me. This is why you will hear me hammer on this over and over. So this is just some of the dozens of Grammy camps, teaching in recording studios in New York and LA and Nashville and DC and everywhere. And then one day, same year, oddly enough, 2009, I was on a mission trip over in the Philippines, producing some video of the orphanages and stuff and the way they were helping these kids. And I found myself sitting next to this guy in the plane. And I said, hey, I'm Nathan, as is my custom. What do you do? Tell me about you. He said, I'm a guitar player. My family has a show here in Branson. We've been doing it for 50 years. What about you? I said, I'm a professor. I teach audio and video production out in Nashville, and I'm remote here in Branson right now teaching that. He goes, that's cool. He said, could we maybe hire you? We just started a TV show, and we've done one episode, and it was pretty rough. We do live performances every night, hundreds of times a year, but we hadn't done a TV show. I said, I'll come by and check it out after the thing. When he saw my videos at the end of that trip, he said, yeah, definitely come see us. So I go over, and they had a classical problem. It was the earlier days of video editing, 2008, but they had 3 non-professional editors, basically the cousins, who had all self-taught themselves the software trying to edit. How many of you have edited a video as a non-professional? Right, everyone in the room, for the most part. Phone, maybe computer. And they had done the same thing, but there's a difference between editing a couple of clips together on a phone or a tablet or even a computer and needing to deal with hundreds of files that need to be assembled in specific ways, or music sections cut together, or comedy, or sound effects added to turn something into a TV show. And then you're probably gonna have to reopen that a year from now to tweak the advertisers, or change the dates, or change the sponsors. So you gotta save it in a way that you can open it up a year from now. If you don't, you've gotta redo all that work a year later. This is how most of the industry runs, especially for creative and entertainment industry people. So I said, let me show you how we're gonna workflow this. And I walked them through the exact system and structure that we are going to use and learn this semester. And by the end of that episode, it took me about 25 hours to get that first episode, because they had shot it in widescreen, narrow screen, high def, standard def, interlaced, progressive. It was a mess. But by the time we got to episode 3, it went out way smoother in about 2/3 of the time. And on episode 4, they said, you know what? We'd just like to hire you as the post-producer for the show. So that led to 141 episodes as just a side project. 141 episodes with a different gold, platinum, or Grammy-winning artist on every episode. Dramatically expanded my resume and was seen by millions of people. Still on the air today, actually. And that's just led to other continued opportunities. I'm on the board of TEDx Nashville because of a relationship and at an industry party where I was starting to teach and show people what's coming in virtual and augmented reality. Back in 2017, that led to my first TED Talk, and then later being on the board for TEDx Nashville. These are just some pictures from our student meetups and the studio hangs at our place. This is my wife, Dr. Jamie Adam, and our kids, although this is like 7 years old. Wow, okay. She looks identical, actually prettier, but they have all grown quite a bit. And then most recently, I've been working with her on developing content for nursing students. This is her passion. Dr. Jamie Adam, she teaches over nursing, and so helping her create things that are helpful for getting nursing students through nursing school. So I didn't touch on the women's clothing line or any of the other things along the way that were other projects I took on for some period of years, but every one of which came because of a relationship and the skills you will learn in this class. So what you do with the skills you're learning here is 100% up to you and the relationships you take the time to build. Each is necessary. All right, and the last thing that people, for whatever reason, find useful or funny or interesting.
Word on the streets and it's coming at night. Reindeers flying.
Boom! A 1-second cameo in a Justin Bieber music video. That's it. That's everything you need to know about me. What questions do you have? Let's take time for 2 questions, and then we will roll through. We've got about 15 minutes left. We'll get through the rest of the stuff. Yes. And give me your name as we go. So, Anna.
This is kind of irrelevant, but did you get to meet Justin Bieber?
It's a funny question. So he was standing next to us. My niece asked me that too, because this was in 2012. My niece was like, "Oh my God, did you talk to him?" I was like, "I don't really have anything to say to Justin Bieber. I didn't know his music at the time. He was still newer then, although he was still a big star. So no, I didn't really chat with him. In fact, that's my wife. They had made us wait so long. Shoots like that take forever, and it was already like 1 o'clock in the morning. And so this is my wife convincing me to not just walk off set. And then he came out and we were already kissing, and they thought that was great for the background. So there you go. Yes.
Do you prefer doing work for like products and services, or more so like creative endeavors?
I love people. You will figure that out pretty quick about me. I just think people are the coolest, and everybody I meet, I'm kind of endlessly fascinated about their journey. So as a teacher, that's worked out pretty well. But as a result, anything that's not collaborative, I just have a lot less interest in. So I kind of find myself in two things. Some of the things I'm most proud of ever, like the TV show or whatever, are things where somebody had a vision and my technical skills were able to accompany their vision to execute something great. That's definitely my most comfortable spot. There are things I do creatively just for me or for my own creative outlet, but I've had the difference in my career is everything I'm learning for myself or for fun, and to figure out what's the most efficient way to help people learn how to use this technology to change their life or change other people's lives. So everything in this class, starting next class, you guys are going to start learning how to use a computer in a way you've probably never used before. You're going to learn how to use shortcuts. It's going to be uncomfortable, like your first piano lesson. You're going to, I will give you mnemonics. We'll use all kinds of muscle memory that will get you going, but that's why I love teaching. It is like getting to work with a bunch of people at once, and you get to see them have the aha moments every class. So for me, it's collaboration always beats just my own creative whatevers. Great question. Other stuff. Yes. Sarita.
2 questions.
Yeah.
The first one, do you have any advice for people who are scared of people?
People who are scared of people? Yeah, for sure. It would depend on the causes or root of that fear, because if it's like unprocessed trauma in the background. But otherwise, there's a lot of books that I try to absorb a new personal improvement book every couple of weeks, because for as long as I've done that, my life just keeps getting better. Because it's like, it teaches me to identify false beliefs, limiting beliefs. Like if I've had negative experiences with people in the past, I mean, to be honest, it's going like a little deeper. Like the guy in the beginning of those slides didn't have any friends. It was incredibly socially awkward. I'm funny, like people find me interesting or quirky, but I did not know how to interact. I was raised very sheltered, like Southern Baptist, super conservative. Drums were not allowed in our house. It was a whole, for somebody that's made his career in the music and entertainment industry, it was a strange upbringing. But over time, once I figured out that everybody just is looking for something that validates their identity or their own perception of themselves, and they want to be inspired in how to grow, if you start viewing people through that lens, they become a lot more interesting. Now there's personal experiences and stuff that color that from your background, but yeah, I'll steer you to some books or things that I think you would find incredibly helpful, or at least were very helpful for me.
And,
Second question?
what are your thoughts on AI?
I have so many, we would fill the rest of the time. We could talk about the implications of, we will use a little bit of generative AI in here. You will see me reference other tools, AI tools that are changing how we do some of these things. We will use them in Photoshop. I give it a 30% chance of ending human civilization, maybe, give or take. Yeah, I don't know, 25. But in the meantime, I think it is It can be an incredibly powerful force for good and for creators, unquestionably. So as long as we continue forward, ideally at some sort of wise or measured pace, if the more people that are thinking about like, hang on, how do we keep this technology from getting completely out of control? We will look at AI tools this semester for cloning your voice. This year this year is going to be transformative. You will see the first election where people realize they can't believe anything they see or hear. How many of you have already seen voice models, deep fakes, those sort of things? That's easier than ever and more accessible than ever. So this year you will see deepfake take a 10x jump in terms of how prominent they are. The only technical solution I see to that is blockchains, but all of that gets so far outside of this class. So grab a meet and we can go through step by step whatever you want to talk about. Excellent question, Savita. Thank you. Yes?
I've got two questions.
Yeah.
One is much simpler, so I'll start with that one. I'm very familiar with Lightroom.
Yeah.
Not much at all with Photoshop. How much, like, in the differences, like, how much Photoshop am I going to be learning in this class versus just what I already do?
I mean, Photoshop is a program that you could literally spend dozens and dozens of hours, not even hundreds of hours just to get, like, it depends on what you're trying to do. Photoshop is a tool for cleaning up, correcting, fixing things. That's how we're going to use it, but you can use it for designing and creating and collaging, etc. So you're going to learn how to take photos and, for the most part, look at them, assess them for what changes you would want for your vision, for their use in a video, photo, marketing, whatever, and we're going to fix things. So how do we separate things out into layers, adjust them accordingly, hide things or eliminate things that distract from the point, manipulate the color, manipulate exposure, balance, etc. So once you have those skills, then you can do what I did, which 16 years ago, I produced my first multi-platinum DVD. Sweetwater said they would sell it, and I needed a case. I realized we had to ship this in a case. I was like, oh shoot, there's no graphics. Plus, I'm not a graphic designer, and I don't know anybody that is, and Canva didn't exist, and 99 Designs didn't exist. It was none of those things. So, but I had a month of time off in the summer, and a friend who is now the chief engineer at Lander.com, which is an online mastering thing, gave me a CD of early LinkedIn learning Photoshop tutorial. And that month, I spent 30 hours going through Photoshop tutorials and doing everything they did. And that was the last course on Photoshop I've ever taken. Everything since then I've been able to pick up in bits and pieces to solve specific problems. So you'll learn how to use it from that point of view, and then just know that there's a billion other things you can keep adding on top.
Yeah, cool. Then my second question, you've mentioned blockchain a couple times. At first, I was like, oh man, is this guy a crypto bro? But then you said that— For
sure I am. Yeah.
You are. Okay, so I'm not. I'm very crypto skeptic, so I'm gonna try not be insulting.
That's
but
okay. Anything insulting would just show a lack of knowledge.
Then you mentioned that it's the way to stop AI. So then I was just wondering, like, I don't even know how to phrase that question. I'll talk to you after class.
Let's grab lunch.
Yeah.
Let's grab lunch. I can walk you through it, but it's so far outside of this class's
I'm just so
context.
How you think? Because I think blockchain is stupid, but that's mostly in it being used for finance, where I've heard it being used. But being used to stop AI, that seems really interesting.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's going to be the only way to validate if something is real or
Yeah.
not.
Okay.
Because everything visually is going to have to get hashed and put on a blockchain so that we can validate that that's what that picture looked like at that point in time, or that's what that video actually had at that point in time, or audio, that's what this person actually said. And you can't believe anything. We could train a voice model on everyone in this room right now in 30 seconds, and you could convincingly type anything and call your parents with it, and they would believe it is you until you told them it wasn't. 30 seconds. That's how easy it's become. And the tools are only going to become more prominent. Blockchains are the only technology we have right now that can stamp a digital file and say, this existed like this at this point in time. So it has to be the solution, or we all succumb to AI. All right, let's see. Great stuff. I'm gonna go through. Let me just make sure I got everything else here. So when talking about this class, my goal is a perfect class every time. I will ask you after every project, how would you do it different? What would you spend more time on? What would you spend less time on? How could we tweak it? We will go through. How many of you have had a good class experience before, like a great one? Yeah, what made it great? Give me one or two things. Yeah.
The communication between professors and students.
Yeah, it's clear. Like, hey, what are we learning? Oh, we're learning this. Can I look that up somewhere? Yeah, it's right there. Perfect. Absolutely. Katie, what made yours great? Same thing. Anyone got something different? Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Keith.
When professors like adapt things to that specific class,
Yeah.
they do the same thing for every single class.
Well, and while our projects will be specific, there are going to be things because we also need to make sure that when you get into the next class, that you have a certain set of skills. I'm constantly tweaking and adjusting accordingly. Good stuff. Who's had a bad class, like a really poor class experience? What made it bad? Cole.
Just general discourse. The professor seemed like he really didn't care about being there at all.
Yeah.
So he kind of made it very obvious, or it was just really harsh rating for very stupid reasons. I'm gonna just fail you for one mistake.
Yeah.
So,
Oof. Yeah. So I just finished my doctorate in education last year. So, and one of the things that stuck out to me was 70% of my teachers were so bad I wouldn't have hired them to teach doggy daycare. So, and I was like, you guys are teaching education. You should understand how people learn. This stuff should be presented, but most of them were just old enough that they didn't care and they didn't have to care. But I was like, I will never teach a class like this. And so that's why you see it's designed the way it is. Absolutely. Bella?
I was gonna say the professor was really disorganized and kind of just had a schedule and then each class threw the schedule out and basically just talked about whatever they wanted to.
Oh God, I've been through that too. Yes, that is terrible. This is the class. It is possible a day will rearrange or we'll have something that we've got to do that, in which case it'll be changed here, it'll be changed in Canvas, no questions. But this is what we're doing every day. Cool? Excellent. You can be confident of that because I already made the tutorials or I'll be making new ones, and so we all have to be on the same page about how to do the things. Great. All right, so as we're getting here closer to the end, don't need that, don't need that, don't need that, don't need that. Let's see. There it is. Okay. So if you look up reviews for this class, and I can send you a bunch of them, although their reviews are positive, except for the latest one on Rate My Professor. They're all really good, and this person was pissed off. So it's funny to go back and look through this because I'm so used to every time I read my evaluations, it feels like sit down with a glass of wine and a snuggly blanket and just enjoy. This is wonderful. So, but you'll see, students say this. I've taken the course. They love how it's organized in the Google spreadsheet. So if you have any questions about that, just know it's probably the most #1 cited thing that people love. Once they get into it, they're like, oh, I already see the whole class. I know exactly what we're going to be doing. I'll organize it in a spreadsheet. It should be easy to follow along. I will talk about real life experiences and how those work. People like the LinkedIn learning modules because they're not me. It's a different way to kind of learn the content. Next class, the videos are not on LinkedIn. They're just on YouTube because we'll log into LinkedIn next time and make sure that everybody's comfortable getting into that point. It's so organized, it's incredible. Some of the most helpful access, hands-on experience taught from a cool perspective with their futures in mind. That said, there's some improvements. He speaks really quickly. Now, you might not have noticed. I'm not on Adderall. This is the way I talk all the time. But he does go back over things with you until you understand. If you won't ask for help, though, I'll try to help you. But if you don't ask for help or you won't accept it or you won't just book a time and come over and meet with me or jump on Zoom, I'll do it any way you need it if it will help you. And that, I think, is actually one of the things that made me sad about that review on Rate My Professor. It wasn't that, they said I'm a nice guy and stuff. They said I couldn't teach because I would just stand up in front of the class and explain things too quickly. But that meant they weren't using the tutorials. That meant they never booked a time. The person also had almost 6 absences, and then numerous times in class were using their phone. They're actually the primary reason that I added you cannot be on your phone in class or else you're not participating. They're the reason I added it. So their name is not on it, but there was only one person in my classes that semester acting like that. So I feel bad for them because it means that they didn't want to learn it and they didn't come. They didn't just take advantage because I would have helped them. In fact, I'll do what I can. So, but the goal is this. I just want to be a great professor. I love teaching. I will always work towards a perfect class. We'll learn production and professional skills. Yes, you'll be invited over to our house so that my wife and I can invest in you and get to know you. I do love my job. I'm crazy passionate and enthusiastic about it. And my goal is always this: to have course evaluations that are higher than anybody else. That means that you guys learned more than you thought you could, and you did it You did it in a time that you didn't think you could. So for next class, if you look at the schedule, what do you need to do before then? Watch these 2 videos, take the quiz, and then there is a discussion post on Canvas, wherever that is, right here. There's a discussion post that should be there. I'm not seeing it. Hang on. Discussions, introduce yourself right here. When you click on that, it's going to ask a few questions just so there can be a public place where I can see how many, what experience do you have, etc. You guys told us a little bit about that there, but just fill that in. Feel free to comment or like on anyone else's video or posts. Next class, make sure you've gone through those videos, taken quiz 1 and done the discussion, and ideally have that flash drive for next class. Cool? I guarantee you by the end of this class, 2 things will happen. You will either walk out of this class and say, hey, thanks so much, I learned a ton. I actually have already had some opportunity to put this skill and that skill into play. I got to edit my friend's music video, or I made I fixed somebody's image that's the cover of their next album, or whatever. Or you'll come up to me and say, hey, thanks, enjoy the class. I think I want to change my major, or I just don't want to do anything like this again. And that's okay too. I'll say, great, grab a time with me. Let's meet in my office, meet for lunch, in the caf, whatever. And I will help you strategize this out. This has created, working with you guys has created the life that I always dreamed of. So it's like the more I pour into you, the better things get. So on the way out the door, so that I can know your name, all I want you to do, I'm just gonna grab my phone, I'll hold it up, I'm just gonna run video so I can learn your name, walk past, shake my hand, and say your full name, whatever you want to be called. So first and last name, whatever you want to be called, and I'll have them down by next class. Cool? All right, thanks y'all, have a great one. I'm gonna stop this recording real quick so that